And welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network. And after further review with Coach Heiss Northern. Coach, how you doing today, sir?
Man, everything good. Look, that honey-do list got a little shorter today, so everything going real good around here in the Northern household. Getting ready to catch the last few games of my son's regular season and go from there. See how they gonna, playoff matchups gonna come, and checking out these last few games of the college football regular season. I know for us, it's going to stretch out to Thanksgiving weekend at a minimum, with us both following Grambling and Southern, as well as I think they moved the Florida A&M game. Bethune got to play. A&M has to make a makeup game or something like that. But, I mean, everything's going fine. Had a good time at Prairie View's homecoming. I saw so many guys that played for me from the time that I got there to my last year there with their family, or just walking around with groups of guys now that's in their early 30s that got a little pocket change that had some RVs and stuff. So, the first thing I asked them was what they doing for the university and the football program, and not just doing for themselves, going up there having a good time, and can't say they gave a little bit of money back to the place that made all this stuff possible for some of them.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And you can talk about it, but then you got to help be the change factor. And when you get a chance to step up, as that my grandmother would say, don't mind retching back and helping somebody along the way.
Now, like I say, you got to pull somebody along the way as you climb up for some of those guys, the financial ladders that, they may have come from single homes. Now they got wife and kids. And you try to make it better for the people behind you that's coming through those same doors, even though it looks totally different. For, say, the guys that played for Coach Frazier and myself, it looks totally different from them. So, I tell them, don't harbor any ill will towards, like some people, if they played at a place and they have something new, they almost look at it like, why do I need to give when we didn't have that when I was there? I'm like, nah, that's why you have to give more. Because you want to make sure that they be able to keep up with the place that they have that's new, and be able to get some, better. The longer you keep up with it, the better student athlete that you're gonna get too. So, like you say, I'm real big. And then the funny thing about it is when I'm not out of my car 5 minutes, and I see a guy that walked on that I gave a scholarship, and man, he was so thankful, hugging me, talking to my son, and he knows Adam. And, he's telling Adam, hey, man, this is what your daddy told me. Be good to the game going to be good to you. Then we walked 2 or 3 more minutes. We hadn't even made it to the Baby Dome. And it's other guys that played for me that's telling Adam, hey, man, don't let the ants and mosquitoes be the reason that you're not successful. So they saying all the things that I told them, and, just talking about how when they talk to each other, they repeating stuff that I may have told them in a meeting, or the after practice talks where we talked about manhood and doing the things that you're supposed to do and doing things for other people. Just all those things about taking care of responsibilities and not making excuses. They telling the same thing to their kids. One guy was like, man, my son's 4 years old, and I'm telling him the same thing that you told me at 18 or 19.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The beauty behind that, as you begin, Adam is, 17, 18 now?
Yes, sir, 17 now.
Okay. My baby is 23. And when they hear other folks say, to them it's like blah, blah, blah,
yes.
blah, blah. And, then they start looking like, maybe the old man know what he's talking about after all, And my father used to say, linger on, but die you must, son. You'll figure it out after a while. But that's good, man, to see the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, sir.
And it was a good, joyous occasion for PV Nation and homecoming. They got the win. Even though the score indicated that it was close, it wasn't really close. Prairie had control of that game from start to finish. Some things you still would like to see them tighten up on that they're still working on. But like you say, you got to take baby steps before you start walking and running. So with them, having their traveling shoes on at Abena, I'm still looking to see because this game, I was a little concerned last week, but this game makes me nervous, Coach, because of the recent history.
Yes, sir.
Because of the recent history. And when people hit me, you're so pessimistic. No, I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being a realist. Because you could easily be swallowed up, just like we got bit by Pine Bluff. Valley, I'm thinking, going to get somebody. And they only got a few games left, and I don't want PV to be that somebody.
Well, you want to go a game like that, you want to go put them out their misery early. So you want to make them, we used to say, we want to make them put their hands down where they don't want to fight anymore, where they just, you want to make them. But the thing about it, you don't, I remember one year we went up there and we were on defense. They fumbled the ball, we pick it up and scoop and score the very first play of the game. I said, man, that might have been the worst thing that ever happened to us. You know, it's like that, we keep going back to the solo home run. We got the solo home run early and didn't keep pinching, moving guys over, bunting and stuff like that. We had a few big plays, but we end up losing that game in the last, minute or so. So it was, like I said, it was just a crazy day up there. But like, you want to put them out of their misery, make them stop fighting, and then you get a chance. The problem is you can only take, I think, 63 players when you go on the road. So you don't have a lot of guys that you can put in that may not have played a lot, but you want to get to the point where everybody gets to play because you up by so much, and then make it enjoyable for those guys. But you don't want to let them hang around where they start saying, man, we ain't got knocked out yet, so we might as well keep on fighting.
Right. Well, you had a chance, of course, with commentary on the game last week from Prairie View's stadium. When you look at the gameplay, trench play, skill set play, did you see any noticeable changes and improvements? We know the win, and it's easier to analyze and be a fan for most people when their team is winning. But what did you see that was a noticeable change from your perspective for Prairie View?
Well, they were able to get the ball to the playmakers early, and they did not overthrow wide open receivers. If you go back to pretty much every game that Prairie View played, especially the first 5, I would say even up to the Incarnate Word game, every game they had a receiver that was wide open, and they may have overthrown a kid by 10 yards, and particularly Burns. I can go back to the Texas Southern game. I can go back to the Grambling game. I can go to the Southern game, and even the Incarnate Word game where they had that joker wide open and overshot him by, 5 or 10 yards. And my thing, I would tell Jerry or Smiley, whoever was playing quarterback, on those wide open throws or some throws, even if a guy's contested, throw it high and short, at least he has a chance to make a play. A guy like Savage should get a couple high back shoulder throws and see if he can come down with it. So they made those plays. They got the ball to Burns early. Savage had a couple big plays early. And they turned those big plays into touchdowns, and because they had physical mismatch. I think from that point, they did a good job of getting the ball to them. They were able to run the ball some, but I think a couple times when they were trying to run it to, let's say, take more time off the clock, they almost got through the blitz, but it was like one guy that wasn't accounted for, and sometimes the running back got to either run over that guy or make a miss, and they wasn't able to get a couple of, just say some 3rd and 5s where they ran it. They got, 2 or 3 yards instead of that 5 that was needed. But I thought they did a good job getting it in the hands of the playmakers and, sort of keeping it going for a while until the offense got stagnant. Then they picked it up a couple times when they really needed to.
Right. And any win is a good win and a confidence builder off the couple of weeks that they had. And so, as we say, we're going into Itabena. You hope they're staying hungry, focused, and on mission to come back with the win, as they'll have another tall task the following week against FAM, who, by the way, will be hosting Texas Southern, man. And FAM is just tough at home, man.
Man, I don't know what it is because their stadium is not the best. It's not the most. It's not going to wow you when you walk in the locker room. But it's number one, they've had good teams the last few years. They hadn't had to play Jackson State at home, and they had good players too. So all of that goes hand in hand, and they had good coaches. You know, I can't take anything from Coach Simmons and what he did in turning that program around. But when you have all of those things, you have a fan base that don't just come and sit in the stands and watch the game. They get into it. They have a student body that stays into the game, the whole game. All of that makes a difference, and they just believe that some kind of way they're going to figure out a way to pull out a victory when they play at I want to say it's Bragg Stadium.
Bragg's Memorial, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, and the home field advantage is so key and so critical. That's, you know, here I am, sound like an old man on my lawn again. That's why I favor the smaller venues, because you can pack them jokers a little bit easier. And okay, I don't care if it's only a 8, 10, 12,000 seat stadium. To me, it creates a high demand for the tickets, which makes a person stop being slowful and they get their tickets early and they show up and have a good time and create a game day experience. But we're not going to start talking about game day.
Can I tell you something too, Mike? At one time at Prairie View, we might not have played but 3 or 4 games at home, but we had a decent home winning streak, and I think part of that came from the environment, the way it looked, because people, you know, I would hear guys on the other teams like, man, we at this middle school or high school stadium, or the high school down the street is better than this and than this place here. Then you had to think about them having to walk to the old intramural building to get dressed and all that. So I think all that had something to it. When I first got into collegiate coaching, I coached at Grambling. Grambling had the oldest gym pretty much in the conference, but their women's basketball team had the longest home game winning streak in the country for a good while. So it's those, like you say, those small, intimate buildings. They packed. They got a great student presence. You get loads of sleep by the way. The other teams were getting dressed in the classroom when I was at Graham. It wasn't even a locker room. You know, different things like that that made it hard for other teams to. I would say, like you say, they had good teams, good players, good coaches, all that type of stuff. But it just was that environment with the football and the baseball team sitting either at the end of the gym or right behind the visiting team bench, and it would get wild in there sometimes.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, that's part of the home field advantage, you know, and the psychological advantage of it, because they're looking, because when the dust settles, you're out there on the field, which is, I'm kind of torn in between, Coach. Like, you know, to me, part of the home field advantage is making as much noise as you can. And me personally, I don't see nothing wrong with the bands playing while the other team trying to get the signal off. That's part of the home field advantage. You know, and I told them I'm sound like a man on my own lawn right now, but I miss that element of the game, man.
Hey, man, and you know what? That's what makes you, if you think about it, if you're a real competitor, you're trying to shut those guys up. But like I say, you think about it, especially on the to me, baseball, if you got some jokers sitting back there talking about you bad and, you know, making fun of everything you do wrong, or you got a basketball game, because you could get there, you could see the guy's face. In football, you can't see their face so much, but you can still get on their nerves. But, you know, ain't nothing like being at a basketball game, especially when a baseball, when them jokers are funny. I remember, like I say, playing at Grambling, especially when I played baseball at Southern, they had a DJ, and he had all these little things that he would drop in. So, you know, when you struck out, he might have had the joker laughing in the background, or if something happened, you made an error, you know, they might play a whoops, you know, something like that. I didn't mean, you know, all those different things that go into having a home crowd. And like I said, I was at the game. I'm gonna tell you this, and I told Lionel Mosby this the other day. My wife brought one of our younger relatives to the game, and at halftime, this was before halftime, he wanted to leave the game because he was bored. Because, you know, despite the plays that Prairie View was making, he was like, man, it's like something was missing from the crowd participation. And where I was broadcasting the game was mostly right behind where the players' families sit because they pass back through that way going to the locker room. And they had a couple of the players' parents trying to get a defense chant going, something going. But it, like I said, it just didn't stick. I don't know if because it was so hot or what, but we got to find a way to get them to give that external push to the guys on the field. Even, like I say, the home side was packed as can be, and a lot of people still in the rotunda, the concourse area, but we got to find a way to get them a little bit more excited to push those guys on.
Let me ask this question, and not trying to insult anyone, but do you think it could be because of lack of football IQ?
I just don't know if it's a lack of football IQ, because even the PA announcer was trying to get a defense chant going, and people were just sitting there. It's almost like, why am I going to chant defense? And I would say that's the difference. And I don't know. I hate to compare everybody to the Grambling, Southerns, and Fans and Jackson States, who I think have some of the best, in my opinion, fan bases, depending on how you look at it. But I don't think it takes much football IQ to know you need to make some noise on third down. That's just my opinion.
Right.
It's just like knowing sometimes while we on offense and we right in the band, you right in front of them, they don't need to play loud while we on offense. It's just certain things you shouldn't have to be told when it comes to football.
Well, you know what they say, that's about assuming now. That's about assuming.
No, that's true.
What they say about assumptions. But when you look, and you made me think back when I played, and I used to enjoy going to Southern. They had a guy that would be in the stand. Man, he would rag everybody. And I enjoyed.
You talking about ain't lying?
Yeah, he ain't lying. He ain't lying.
Hey,
boy, he was funny as heck, man.
We talk about that all the time, but that dude, unfortunately, he passed away. I want to say a little bit over a year and a half ago. But he was there when I played. He probably been there since Luke Brock played there. So he just was a guy that you could count on for some laughs, some stories, all that kind of stuff. So I think we might need some more fans, or we might just maybe have an administrator down on the field with a bullhorn, somebody that can. They
won't even let you come in the game with bull. Man, I came to a Prairie View baseball game. They were playing Pine Bluff, and I was, I'm being a fan. I ain't got no horse in the race. I'm here to cheer my Panthers on. They made me. Coach James, Carlos James, was coaching for Pine Bluff. He went to the umpire and asked the umpire to tell me to put my bullhorn up.
Yeah.
I was like, now come on. I gave Carlos and we go back. And I said, man, that was cheesy. But if I'm not, it's not an artificial goal. I'm just trying to amplify what I'm doing. But I'm a fan. Yeah. I'm a fan. And when I go to a game, if I'm not working it, broadcasting, I'm going to cheer the game, and I'm going to stay until the clock say all zero. I don't care how bad it is.
Yeah.
I got to see it to the end. And I guess that's that old man coming off the lawn again, but I can't help myself, Coach. And speaking of old men coming off the lawn, your Jags, man, it was rough on last week.
Man, it was the part of the game that I got to see. It was rough because you saw where they had a chance to make some plays. The defense kept them in the game, but the quarterback play, in my opinion, the quarterback play caught up with them again, and then they couldn't get the running game going because Florida A&M had no reason almost to play pass defense because the quarterback, neither one of them could really get going. So it was bad, and then eventually the defense started missing some tackles that they had been making or blowing a coverage. I know I saw one blown coverage where a guy ran with the post when he had deep third and they ran the wheel route behind it. I mean, that joker could have moonwalked in the end zone. But it just, I think sometimes as a defensive coach, when your offense sputtering, it puts so much pressure on those guys that they start trying to do too much, and in the effort to do too much, they don't make some of the plays that they normally make. And I've seen it happen to Prairie View this year in a couple games where they playing real tight. Then the next thing you know, it's a joker, like you say, so wide open they call them 7-11 almost. So it's just one of them things that happens to good defenses at the wrong time. But man, my Jags, they going to A&M this week, so hopefully they can put it a little bit more together. I think they have T-Set back, probably starting at quarterback, depending on his injury. But he looked like he was moving better, but he's still not himself when it comes to the mobility of playing quarterback.
Okay. Now, of course, the shot heard across the world, at least the SWAC world this week, was Coach Joseph. And as results of being short against Texas Southern this past weekend. Grambling, I thought, was going to come in and win that game. But according to Coach Joseph, it was some unfavorable calls that may have helped that outcome for Texas Southern.
Well,
go ahead.
So I was watching the Southern game that was pretty much on at the same time, but my sister was watching the Grambling game, and I could hear her, making some comments about a call, maybe a face mask that had been missed, or a holding call when Texas Southern was on offense. And I remember Coach Frazier, when he was at Prairie View, he got fined and suspended for I'll tell you what, he said much less than Coach Joseph did. And he got fined and suspended. I want to say it may have been the third year. So it's sometimes when you're trying to turn a program around, it's almost like they don't think you're supposed to be that good. And it may be some personal thing. I know Coach Joseph ride them jokers hard, but like he say, if you ride them hard, sometimes things in the referee's mind can get personal. They'll hold on to a call against you, or they'll see a call that, is very common, but they'll make that call sometimes. So I am in total agreement with what Coach Joe said, because I know, and I try to tell the referees this, man, y'all messing with people's livelihood when y'all do things like that. I know for a fact I could count at least 3 games where a blown call kept Prairie View from winning the game. If I could show you the film, you'd be like, oh, yeah, there's no way. And what I would do, I would go talk to the referees before the game about certain things. I would go talk to them about linemen downfield, because certain schools that we would play against would, they running the same offense that we running pretty much, but they would throw the ball. I mean, linemen 7 yards downfield. Linemen would be so far downfield they had to duck for the receiver to catch the ball. And, I would talk to them. But the other thing that I would do, every year the referees have a point of emphasis that they come and talk to you about. So I would ask them about that. And if you're not calling what you said was a point of emphasis, don't waste my time telling me what a point. Don't come to Prairie View. And they go to every school in the conference with this video, and they show you what they're going to be looking at. And they'll come and do your scrimmages and talk to the team. But, I would say, hey, man, don't waste my time if you're not going to call what you said is very important. So, I mean, it's tough dealing with them jokers. And some of them I like them. When I go to games now, they see me on the sideline. They come to, hey, what you doing, and talking and stuff. And then sometimes I'll be saying to myself, man, I hope this dude don't say a doggone thing to me, because he is pissed.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a moment, Coach. If any given play during the course of a football game, you could call holding on every down. You can call some type of infraction. You never get the game completed. And I've always saw it somewhat as an excuse that we'll lean on a bad play, okay? Because I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes you go in there anticipating you're not going to get the calls. Doesn't that rely more on you executing to prevent them from having to fall back on an official's call?
Yeah, so one of the things that you teach your defensive linemen is don't rush down the middle of a man, because it's hard for a referee to see holding if you're standing right in front of the guy. So it's a technique that most people call long arming, where you almost you might take your right hand, or you take your inside hand and you push on that guy's either the middle of his shoulder, or you try to grab part of his shoulder pad, And now since your arm is extended, you're outside of his body, it's easier for a ref to see holding, because if you try to get away, then they going to see your shoulders turn. That's what they would say, like, Coach, he didn't gain the advantage. That's why I didn't call the holding penalty. Or they may say, Coach, he was straight in front of him. He could hold all day. Or you got to tell your man, your defensive player, to get off the block. If he's getting off the block, then we can see the holding penalty.